On Tuesday, October 6, 1931, at 6 p.m., Frank Nitti walked into Al Capone's private dining room at the Lexington Hotel for what Capone believed would be a routine strategic briefing 3 weeks before his trial for tax evasion, a trial that would determine whether the most powerful gangster in American history would lose everything he'd built over 8 years controlling Chicago's criminal economy. Capone was 32 years old, at the absolute peak of his power, controlling an empire worth $100 million annually, wearing a custom suit that cost more than most Americans earned in a year. To casual observers, the waiters who served them, the bodyguards who stood outside, this looked like a confident boss meeting with his most trusted enforcer to plan for a minor legal inconvenience, someone who'd beaten dozens of charges before and would beat this one too. But to Frank Nitti, who'd been Capone's enforcer and confidant for 8 years, who'd watched every decision Capone made since 1923, who'd seen the empire built through brilliant tactics and destroyed through catastrophic leadership failures, who'd been waiting for this conversation even though he knew it came too late. Al Capone looked like exactly what he was, a brilliant gangster who'd failed completely as a leader. According to Nitti's own account, documented in conversations with federal investigators between 1932 and 1935, Capone opened the meeting with a simple question that lasted approximately 30 seconds but revealed everything about why his empire was about to collapse. "Frank, tell me honestly, the trial's in 3 weeks. If I go away for a few years, and that's the worst-case scenario, is the organization strong enough to run without me? Do we have the right people in place? Are the territories secure? Will the money keep flowing? Because from everything I'm seeing, we're at the strongest position we've ever been in. I just need you to confirm that." What followed, according to Nitti's account of the 2-hour conversation that took place that evening, was a devastating diagnosis of 7 fatal leadership mistakes that had destroyed Capone's empire from the inside. Mistakes that seemed like brilliant tactics while Capone was making them, but that compounded into catastrophic failure by the time anyone recognized the pattern. Frank Nitti sat across from Al Capone in the private dining room, watching his boss radiate confidence, the $5,000 suit, the Cuban cigar, the relaxed posture of a man who believed he'd built something permanent. The question came exactly as Nitti had expected it would. "Frank, tell me honestly, the trial's in 3 weeks. If I go away for a few years, and that's the worst case, is the organization strong enough to run without me? Do we have the right people in place? Are the territories secure? Will the money keep flowing? Because from everything I'm seeing, we're at the strongest position we've ever been in. I just need you to confirm that." Nitti had been dreading this conversation for 8 years, not because he didn't know the answer, but because the honest answer would destroy everything Capone believed about himself. He chose his words carefully. "Boss, I need to tell you something you're not going to want to hear. You're about to lose everything. Not because of the tax case. That's just the government finally catching what you handed them. You're losing because of leadership failures." Capone's face darkened immediately. "Leadership failures? Frank, I built the most powerful criminal organization in America. From nothing to $100 million in 8 years. I control Chicago. My name is known worldwide. How the hell is that leadership failure?" "Because you built it as a gangster, but you failed to lead it as a leader," Nitti leaned forward, "and those are completely different skills. You're brilliant at gangster work, tactics, violence, expansion, making money, but you're catastrophic at leadership, building systems, developing people, planning succession, thinking long-term." The silence stretched between them. Finally, Nitti continued. "There are 7 specific leadership mistakes that destroyed your empire, mistakes that almost every successful gangster makes, mistakes that seem smart when you're making them, but compound into catastrophic failure by the time anyone recognized the pattern." Frank Nitti sat across from Al Capone in the private dining room, watching his boss radiate confidence, the $5,000 suit, the Cuban cigar, the relaxed posture of a man who believed he'd built something permanent. The question came exactly as Nitti had expected it would. "Frank, tell me honestly, the trial's in 3 weeks. If I go away for a few years, and that's the worst case, is the organization strong enough to run without me? Do we have the right people in place? Are the territories secure? Will the money keep flowing? Because from everything I'm seeing, we're at the strongest position we've ever been in. I just need you to confirm that. Mistake number 1. You confused fear with loyalty. Nitty let the words settle before continuing. You think because people obey you, follow orders, don't challenge you, that they're loyal. They're not. They're terrified. Capone started to object, but Nitty pressed forward. Real loyalty means people stay when things get hard, when there's pressure, when there's risk. Fear means people obey when you're watching and flee when you're not. You built an organization on fear. The moment you're gone, it collapses. Take Jack McGurn, your top enforcer, brilliant at violence. You think he's loyal because he does whatever you say. He's not loyal. He's terrified of what happens if he doesn't. The moment you're in prison, he'll be the first one the feds flip. I pay better than anyone. I promote people. I take care of my guys. That's not fear. That's loyalty. You pay well and promote based on obedience. That creates dependency, not loyalty. Nitty's voice remained steady. Real loyalty comes from respect, from believing in someone's vision, from wanting them to succeed. Your guys obey because disobedience means death. That's fear. Johnny Torrio built loyalty. Guys respected him, believed in him, wanted him to succeed. When he retired, guys stayed loyal to his vision. When you go to prison, guys will scatter or flip within months. Capone's jaw tightened, but Nitty continued. How do I know? Because I've watched you manage people for 8 years. You lead through intimidation, threaten violence for mistakes, kill people for disloyalty. That creates obedience, brilliant, immediate obedience, but zero loyalty. The moment the fear is gone, so is the organization. Nitty paused, watching Capone process this. That's mistake number 1. Want to hear the other 6? Mistake number 2, you prioritized visibility over invisibility. You became famous. You loved the attention, magazine covers, newspaper interviews, public appearances. And every time you made yourself visible, you handed the government evidence against you. September 1926, your convoy outside the Hawthorne Hotel. 12 cars, armed men, machine guns firing at Jaime Weiss's guys. Brilliant intimidation. You showed everyone who runs Chicago. But there were 50 witnesses, police reports, newspaper coverage. You handed the government documented evidence of your criminal organization.
Torrio stayed invisible, Nitty said, ran bigger operations than you with a fraction of the visibility, retired wealthy and free because prosecutors couldn't prove he existed. You're on trial because you made it impossible for them not to prosecute you. February 1929, the massacre. Brilliant tactical message to Bugs Moran that you owned Chicago, but the public outcry, the federal attention, the investigation, strategic disaster. You turned public opinion, gave government motivation to destroy you. A leader would have calculated whether the tactical win was worth the strategic cost. You didn't. Nitty leaned forward. Every time you appeared in public, you increased federal attention by 10%. After 8 years of publicity, attention is at 100%. That's why you're on trial, not because they caught you doing something, because you made yourself impossible to ignore. Johnny Torrio is still free, still wealthy, living quietly in retirement. You're facing 11 years. Same business, different approach to visibility. Mistake number 3. You led through emotion instead of calculation. Anger, pride, impulse. You made decisions based on how you felt instead of what the organization needed. Nitty didn't wait for Capone's response. Someone disrespects you, you respond with violence. Someone challenges you, you escalate. Someone questions your authority, you make an example. It's emotionally satisfying, but strategically stupid. November 1924. O'Banion insults you, sells you a brewery right before a raid, makes you look stupid. You're angry, so you have Frankie Yale kill him. Emotionally satisfying, but strategically, you started a 5-year war that cost you dozens of men, millions of dollars, massive federal attention. A calculated leader would have absorbed the insult and avoided the war. "O'Banion had to die," Capone said flatly. "He disrespected me in front of everyone. If I let that slide, everyone thinks I'm weak." That's emotional thinking. He disrespected me, so he has to die. Calculated thinking is, does killing him cost more than it's worth? Nitty's voice remained level. The O'Banion hit started the North Side gang war. That war gave prosecutors ammunition, created witnesses, intensified federal attention. The emotional satisfaction of killing O'Banion cost you your empire. Weiss tries to kill you, so you kill him. He attacks the Hawthorne, so you attack his territory. Every response is emotional escalation, brilliant tactical intimidation, but the violence you created gave government the motivation and ammunition to destroy you. Nitty locked eyes with Capone. A calculated leader asks, "What does the organization need?" You asked, "What do I feel like doing?" Those are different questions with different answers. One builds sustainability, one builds collapse. He paused. Your emotions built an empire. Your emotions are also destroying it. That's mistake number 3. Mistake number 4, you built personality dependence instead of systems. Everything in this organization runs through you. Every decision requires your approval. Every operation depends on your direct involvement. That's not leadership, that's bottlenecking. Capone opened his mouth to protest, but Nitty kept going. Real leaders build systems that work without them. You built an organization that requires Al Capone. The moment you're gone, nothing functions. That's not sustainable. Every territory manager has to get your approval for operations over $5,000. Every enforcement decision comes to you. Every dispute resolution requires your judgment. You're personally managing an organization with 600 employees across 6 territories. It's impossible. Because everything goes through you, nothing moves efficiently. Opportunities get missed waiting for your approval. Problems escalate waiting for your attention. The organization is limited by what one person can personally manage. That's a fatal structural flaw. Nitty gestured toward the window. John D. Rockefeller built Standard Oil with thousands of employees across dozens of states. He did it through systems, delegation, clear authority, standardized procedures. His organization worked whether he was present or not. Yours works only when you're present. The only part of your organization that works well is finances, because you actually empowered Jake Guzik to build systems. He doesn't need your approval for every transaction. He has clear authority and accountability. That's why finances run smoothly, while everything else is chaos. You're facing prison, and there's no succession plan. Who runs enforcement? Who manages territories? Who resolves disputes? You never built systems to answer those questions because you never imagined not being here. That's catastrophic leadership. Nitty's voice dropped. An organization built around one person dies with that person. You built an empire that requires Al Capone. The moment you're gone, it collapses. That's not legacy. That's failure. Mistake number 5. You promoted based on loyalty instead of competence. Family gets positions over qualified people. Bodyguards get management roles they're not qualified for. The result is an organization run by loyal mediocrities. Nitty saw Capone's face harden but pressed on. You trust family and longtime associates over talented outsiders. Makes sense emotionally. You know these people, they've been with you, but competence matters more than familiarity. Your brother, Ralph, you put him in charge of soft drinks distribution, a multi-million-dollar operation. He's loyal, he's family. He's also mediocre. The operation is inefficient, losing money, creating problems. A competent manager would have made you millions more, but you chose loyalty over competence. Every time you promote based on loyalty instead of talent, you lose capability. Multiply that across 600 employees, and you've got an organization that's 60% as effective as it could be. Your rivals aren't making that mistake. They're hiring the best people. You're hiring the most loyal people. Nitti leaned forward. You only trust Italians in top positions. Jake Guzik is Jewish and brilliant, but he's limited because he's not Italian. How many other talented non-Italians did you pass over? How much capability did you lose because of ethnic preference? Torrio hired the best people regardless of background. Irish, Jewish, Italian, didn't matter. Competence mattered. That's why his operations were more efficient, more profitable, more sustainable. You built an Italian family business. He built a professional criminal organization. Loyal people are valuable, but loyal incompetents are dangerous. They follow orders badly, make mistakes, create problems. Then you can't fire them because they're loyal, so you're stuck with an organization that's less capable than it should be. Nitti paused. You wanted loyalty and got inefficiency. Real leaders want competence and build loyalty. That's the difference between an organization that works and one that doesn't. Mistake number 6. You chose personal gratification over strategic investment. Money went to suits, cars, parties, publicity, things that felt good instead of things that protected you. Nitti gestured at Capone's expensive suit. $5,000 suits, custom cars, public parties at the Lexington, high-profile lifestyle that satisfied your ego but built zero protection. You could have spent that money buying judges, politicians, police chiefs, real power. Instead, you bought fame. You run operations from the Lexington Hotel, public, visible, documented. Prosecutors know where to find you, who you meet, when you conduct business. That's gratification. You like the prestige of running an empire from a famous hotel. Strategy would have been operating from anonymous locations that can't be traced.
In 8 years, you made $100 million. How much did you invest in political protection, in buying prosecutors, in legitimate businesses that could launder money? Almost nothing. The money went to lifestyle, not strategy. Nitti's voice hardened. Torrio invested in political protection, legitimate businesses, long-term security. When he retired, he had clean money, political cover, legal businesses. You have nothing because you chose gratification over strategy. The tax case? It exists because you spent money publicly without reporting income. You bought cars, hotels, property, visible wealth that prosecutors could trace. A strategic leader would have kept wealth invisible, built clean businesses, paid some taxes. You chose to live large and get caught. Every decision was about immediate gratification instead of long-term strategy, emotional satisfaction instead of organizational protection, feeling powerful instead of being secure. That's why you're on trial. You prioritized feeling like a boss over protecting the organization. Nitti met Capone's eyes. You're about to lose everything because you chose to look successful instead of being protected. That's mistake number 6. Mistake number 7, the biggest one, you believed you were indispensable, that only you could run this empire. So you never built succession, never developed leaders, never created systems that could work without you.
You built an empire that requires Al Capone, and the moment you're gone, it collapses. Capone's expression shifted, something flickering behind his eyes. Nitti continued without mercy. You think you're the only one smart enough, tough enough, respected enough to run this organization. That belief feels good, it confirms your importance, but it's catastrophic leadership. Real leaders build organizations that can survive their absence. They develop lieutenants who can lead. They create systems that work without their direct involvement. They plan succession. You did none of that. When Torrio retired in 1925, you took over. The organization didn't collapse. Why? Because Torrio built it to survive his departure. He developed you as a leader, created systems, planned succession. When you go to prison, there's no plan because you never imagined not being here. Nitti's voice remained steady. Who takes over enforcement? Who manages territories? Who resolves disputes? Who maintains political relationships? You never trained anyone because you believed only you could do it. Now you're going to prison and there's no one ready to lead. He paused, meeting Capone's gaze. I'm your enforcer. I'm good at violence, at intimidation, at tactical execution. I'm not good at strategy, at politics, at long-term planning. You never developed those skills in me because you wanted to be the only one who could. Now I'm going to inherit an empire I'm not qualified to run. The myth of indispensability feels good, but that belief guarantees the organization dies with you. Real leaders make themselves unnecessary. You made yourself essential. That's why everything collapses when you're gone. Nitti leaned back. 7 mistakes. Every one was survivable alone. Together, they're catastrophic. You asked if the organization can survive your absence. Here's the answer. No, because you built it to require you. Nitti leaned forward, his voice quiet but relentless. Boss, here's what happened. You built an empire on fear, not loyalty, so people flee when you're gone. You prioritized visibility over invisibility, so prosecutors had evidence. You led through emotion, not calculation, so you created unnecessary enemies. You built personality dependence, not systems, so nothing works without you. You promoted loyalty over competence, so the organization is less capable than it should be. You chose gratification over strategy, so you have no safety net. Indispensability meant no succession plan. 7 mistakes, each making the others worse. Here's what happens next. You get 11 years. I take over an organization built on your personality. Within 6 months, territories start getting taken by rivals who don't fear me like they feared you. Within a year, federal attention intensifies because visibility already made you a target. Within 18 months, key associates flip because fear-based loyalty dies with you. Within 2 years, the empire is effectively dismantled. Everything you built in 8 years, gone in 2. Capone's jaw worked silently for a moment before he spoke. So the hell was I supposed to do? How do you build something that lasts in this business? You do what Torrio did. Stay invisible. Lead through systems, not personality. Promote competence, not just loyalty. Invest in protection, not lifestyle. Build loyalty through respect, not fear. Plan succession. Develop leaders. Accept that the empire has to survive without you. That's real leadership. You did the opposite of all of it. 3 weeks later, November 24, 1931, Capone received 11 years federal prison. Everything happened exactly as Nitti predicted. By 1934, everything Capone built was gone. Capone died in 1947 at age 48, broke, brain damaged, everything lost. The empire that took 8 years to build collapsed in 3, because being good at crime doesn't make you good at leading criminals, and Capone never learned the difference until it was too late.